Hello, amazing entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 176, which means you can find all of the show notes and relevant links over at tashcorbin.com/176. In this podcast episode, I'm going to be sharing with you the 8 keys to maximizing sales conversions. So just by making a few little changes, you'll be able to increase your conversion rates. So that means you need to reach less people to make the same amount of sales. Or when you reach more people, you're going to amplify your sales by an even bigger factor. How good is that? Let's jump in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. I'm going to roll straight into these 8 keys to maximizing conversions because I don't think you need to be convinced that increasing your conversion is actually a good idea. We know how impactful our conversion rates are on the bottom line results of our business. So let's just jump into the 8 keys to maximizing your conversion straight away. Number 1, ask for the sale. Now, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I also don't know how many times I have to be told this. We are so resistant to asking for the sale, but that is actually one of the biggest keys to conversion. If you are not consistently telling people how they can work with you, asking them if they'd like to know how they can work with you, or asking for the sale and saying, oh my goodness, my such and such program would be perfect for you. Do you want me to tell you how you can join? Then you are missing out on sales in your business. Now, there are a few places you can go and review and see if you're doing this consistently. Number 1, on your podcast or blogs. Are you actually asking for the sale consistently? Number 2, on your Facebook page. Go and scroll through the last 30 posts on your Facebook page and count how many times you actually tell people about a paid product or service and how they can purchase it. Number 3, in the posts that you're doing in Facebook communities. Now, this is usually where people are doing okay because most of the structured entrepreneurial groups have specific promo days. So you don't want to miss out on the promo day, so you ask for the sale in those. And number 4 is in the conversations that you're having with people. When people email you asking for advice, when people say, can I jump on and do that introductory session, when people are working with you, are you consistently reviewing to make sure they've purchased the appropriate services and products from you and encouraging them to purchase the next step? Now, if you are having conversations with people on Facebook Messenger or on email, are you closing up the giving of free advice and presenting them with the next offer? Are you actually encouraging people to look at what it is that you have to sell? So, number 1, ask. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but there's such a big difference between knowing and doing. So have a little review and make sure you put that one top of your list. Number 2, niche. Now, this is a really big one, and I have an entire training that I run 3 or 4 times a year called Nail Your Niche. If you haven't seen it, reach out, email us, support@tashcorbin.com and say, when's the next Nail Your Niche training? And we will let you know, because niching is one of the critical ways that you can make sure you grow your business and nail that conversion. Now, the reason why niche is so critical is because in most cases, a lack of niche is why your messaging is not resonating with people, because you're trying to speak to everyone and you end up speaking to no one. So here are a couple of key things you can do to be more niched when you are presenting your offers and speaking in your business and marketing your business. Number 1, are you clear on the important demographics? Now, a lot of people, when they're teaching people how to niche, they say, you have to choose an age and you have to choose this and you have to choose that. Often those things aren't relevant. When it comes to demographics, only focus on what's relevant to your service and relevant to the way that you market your products and services. So, for example, women and men is an important demographic decision because the way you sell to men is different to the way that you sell to women. The language you use is different. The channels you use will be different. And the challenges that your ideal client faces and the way that they show up is actually different for women and men. Another important demographic is whether they are working for themselves or working for someone else. Now, remember that niching is about the group of people you focus on when you are marketing your products and services. One of the biggest challenges that I see in the online business world is niche resistance, and people saying, yes, but I can help men and women. So my niche in my niching, male or female isn't important, but there's a difference between what your service can support and who you can market to consistently. And your marketing is dependent on that decision about whether it's men or women, and also whether they are working for themselves or working in a job. And again, it will impact your marketing channels, as well as your messaging, as well as the value proposition of your work. So don't just focus on demographics, but those demographics are going to be important. Next is psychographics. So the next layer of niching is psychographics. What keeps your ideal client up at night? What thoughts and feelings keep telling this person that something needs to change? And when they think something needs to change, what do they start looking for? What do they Google? Who do they ask for support? So knowing that about your niche is critical. And then the final layer is something, it's a word that I totally made up, but it's sensographics. That is, what are their 5 senses telling them about this problem or this goal? So what can they see, taste, hear, smell, and touch that says something is wrong, I need to get help to fix it? So for example, if you're working in parenting, what are the day-to-day things that are going on that tells this person, oh, someone needs to help me with this? Or if you're working in the business and marketing space, what are the day-to-day things that say, oh, I need help with this? Now, here's a really juicy example for you. How many business and marketing people have you seen out there saying they help you get your business to the next level? Now, that is a completely unniched statement that does not resonate with anyone. And yet, people use it over and over again. Help you get to the next level. The next level for someone who hasn't started their business yet is completely different to the next level for someone who's going into scaling, is completely different to the next level for someone who is looking to hire their 13th employee. And yet, you are trying to say that you help everyone get to the next level. It doesn't actually resonate for people because it's not focused on the day-to-day issues. So for example, if you were to instead say, are you finding that you're getting caught up doing all of these admin tasks and you're not showing up in your zone of genius in your business? You know that you need to outsource, but the last time you outsourced, it ended up in a crazy mess. I can help you with that. That is completely different to, have you been thinking about starting a business for the last year, and every time you go to start, something happens and you end up just deciding it's not for you just yet, life gets too busy, and so you've never actually taken that first step? Those two people are wanting to go to the next level, but by talking about it in very practical, tangible terms, you will actually be way more niched and more likely to convert that person into a paying client for you, because they have this deep belief that you know exactly what they need, and you do when you are niched. So number 2 is niche. And as I said, there's so much I could teach you about niching, but I can't go into an hour's long training here. So if you want to come along to my next Nail Your Niche training, just email support@tashcorbin.com and we'll let you know when the next one is on. And I also have another freebie for you at the end of this podcast episode that will help you get started with niching as well. Now, number 3 is value proposition. In order to convert people into paying clients, you need to be able to present a value proposition that is meaningful and aligned for that person. Now, in a nutshell, value proposition is the thing that you're offering worth the amount that you're asking? And if it's worth more than the amount you're asking to me, I will buy it. If it is not worth more than the amount that you're asking to me, I will not buy it. Now, this is a really complex thing to nail in your business, but ultimately, by having a super specific niche and understanding them well, you should be able to understand what their current priorities are and how your product or service helps them to achieve their goal or solve a problem that is an urgent priority. So that is what your value proposition is. And the more you improve the value proposition of your products and services for your niche, the higher your conversion rate will be. Number 4, which is aligned into this, is aligning with their existing priorities. So in order to increase the conversion of people coming to find you, turning into paying clients, instead of trying to convince them to change their priorities, i.e., you need to prioritize your health more, now buy my thing, instead, make sure that your product or service aligns with their existing priorities. So, for example, if your ideal client is constantly Googling and downloading productivity hacks or time savers, then your product or service needs to be aligned to productivity and time, because that's clearly a priority for them right now. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling in the health, business, well-being, money, spaces, parenting, self-care, whatever it might be. If you can align to your ideal client's current top priorities, they will be more likely to purchase your product or service. Full stop. So get clear, what is the priority for your ideal client? For a lot of people, their ideal client's priorities are completely a mismatch with what it is that they're selling. For example, again, in the health and well-being space. For most people in the health and well-being space, their ideal client is not valuing their and prioritizing their health and well-being right now. That's why they have health issues. That's why they need help in this space. But instead of trying to convince people to change their priorities, which is a huge long-term process, what if you could pitch your product or service to actually bring together their top priority with that priority and link the two? That is where you really see conversion skyrocket. Number 5 is connection. How connected does that person feel to you? If I feel connected to you, I'm more likely to buy from you. There are some easy ways for you to increase connection. Number 1, be more present with your audience. Number 2, show your face more, and not the perfectly polished, photoshopped version of your face that only shows up in your photo shoot. Be present and share selfies of yourself in your day-to-day life. Share your photo in the unmanicured version as much as you share your manicured version. Zebras are programmed to recognize stripes. Humans are programmed to recognize faces. And the same goes for your name. If you have a business that has a brand name, make sure you are associating it with your name as well. Humans buy from humans. So that is another way to actually increase connection as well. Be a human. Don't just share the perfectly manicured and polished version of yourself. Share your flaws, share your mistakes. We have a theme day in the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs Facebook group at the moment called #Oops. And the Oops posts are getting the most reach in our Facebook group of any of the posts on any of the days in this community. That is because we like to know that the people we are working with are also whole, flawed human beings. So don't be afraid to show your flawed human self and share your mistakes and say, oops, made a mistake there. Oops, forgot to press record. Oops, whatever it might be. By showing your flaws and your mistakes, you're not saying to people, I'm completely incompetent. Now, there is a limit. Don't share an oops every single day. But you are not actually demonstrating incompetence here. What you are doing is showing that you are human. And humanness creates connection. So there's just a few ways that you can increase connection and therefore increase conversion. Number 6 is empowerment. Now, this is probably the most opposite thing to a lot of the masculine, fear-based strategies that are used out there to sell online. But I have found that by using empowering strategies in my sales process, it feels way more comfortable for me. I show up more consistently, and actually it's higher converting. So you've probably been in one of those webinars or freebies or at an event, or you've read an email where it's basically trying to make you believe that if you don't buy this thing, you will not succeed. And if you do buy this thing, then you'll succeed, but only because you've bought this thing. What you're actually doing in that process by pitching it that way is disempowering your potential buyer. So you are making them feel the fear and the pain point of, if I don't buy, I'm not going to succeed. So you're then attaching their success to their purchase of your product or service. Now, whilst that might seem like a really smart way of doing business, it can actually backfire on you, and particularly if you are selling to women. The reason being is that when women are purchasing online, they are bringing together two things, emotion and logic. And in most cases, when you are in the disempowering model of business, the emotion that you are eliciting is generally negative. But the logic that you are bringing forward is generally like quite clear. Yeah, it's very logical that if I buy this thing, then I'll do these steps and then I will get this outcome. Now, in the fear and pain point based marketing and those marketing processes, by creating that disempowerment, you're creating that fear and that gross and that yucky feeling, and then you swoop in with your solution, which is creating the positive feeling, and then people are like, oh, you become the rescuer. But actually, we are now seeing, particularly for women in business and women buying online, we don't want to be rescued anymore. The rise of feminism, the rise of female empowerment, and all those sorts of things mean that when you try and swoop in and pitch yourself as the rescuer, you actually create the opposite feeling. It's like, hang on a minute, don't tell me I can't do it without you. I'm going to go and do it without you. So you actually appeal to their inner rebel, their inner maverick, and in telling people or using programming or psychological tools to convince people that they're not going to be successful without you, you actually bring that rebel out and they are less likely to purchase. So the other thing I want to say actually, before I tell you how to be more empowering the sales process, is it also feels really gross when you do it. When you start to see why these strategies are being used and why marketers tell you to use these strategies, and you start to think about, well, would I say that to a person to their face? Would I actually come out and say that straight to their face? Would I say, you're not going to be successful without me? No, I wouldn't say that. Then using empowering strategies in your sales process, often for women as well, means that we are more likely to show up and do those sales processes. We feel more aligned in the sales process, and therefore we are more magnetic and more energized, and more people come and flock to us and purchase from us anyway. So I know for myself, if I try and use any of those yucky strategies in sales, it doesn't work because I don't want it to work, because I feel really gross doing it. So there's a little aside for you as well. Now, if you want to be empowering people in the sales process, instead of saying you're not going to be successful without this thing, or future pacing, imagine you don't solve this problem, how's that going to feel? Imagine you do solve this problem, how's that going to feel? It's all gross. Instead, why not elicit a sense of, I can do this in your ideal clients? Why not empower them with some steps and strategies to get started, with some steps and tools, or tell them all of the steps along the way, and then look at the value proposition of investing in the next step with you as an add-on instead of an or. Now, the way that I would explain that is, for example, in a webinar, let's say you are teaching a webinar on how to be a great speaker, and your upsell is VIP speaker coaching, and you're going to coach them on how to be a great speaker. So in that webinar, do you only just give them a few tidbits and not actually tell them the answer? No. Do you dial up their fear and their pain points about, you're never going to be a successful speaker if you don't work with me? No. Instead, empower people to get excited about speaking in the webinar, give them some steps and strategies and tools that they can use to get excited about speaking, to be a better speaker, to show up and get more speaking gigs and do all of those things, and then present your offer as the next logical step for people who want to go deeper and further and get your support as a value add. So even if people don't buy, they leave your webinar feeling empowered, equipped, and ready to get out there and go and do things. And if they want support and guidance and mentoring and coaching along the way, and they really want to elevate it, then they can also add on working with you as a VIP. That is such an empowering way to sell, and it really does increase your conversion. If you don't believe me, just give it a go. See how you feel running your webinar without the fear and pain points and grossness and neuro-linguistic programming to make people feel like they're going to be a complete failure without you. Try running a webinar where you do empower people, where when people leave your webinar, they feel amazing whether they've purchased or not. That is my goal every time I run a webinar. That is my goal every time I create a podcast episode. That is my goal every time I run a challenge, every time I do a Facebook Live. I want to leave everyone feeling like they've got something, they've got great value, they are equipped and empowered to move forward and get great results. And for the people who purchase from me, they have my guidance and mentoring and hand holding along the way as well. So everyone leaves my webinars feeling like it was a great investment of their time. People don't leave my webinar feeling like they're completely freaked out and they're going to fail because they don't have the money to invest in my program. People don't leave my webinars feeling like this deep sense of FOMO and complete panic that if they don't get the money together to work with me, then they're never going to be able to work it out for themselves. I know that every single person who is involved in my audience and comes along to those webinars is a smart, savvy woman who would be able to work it out, who is going to be able to succeed, regardless of whether she purchases from me or not. So try it out. Just see how it feels when you empower people in your sales process instead of disempowering them. Number 7 in the 8 keys to conversion when you're selling is to reduce risk. Now, I do this in a number of different ways. Number 1, I have very generous refund policies. So in my group courses and programs, I offer 30 days, no questions asked, no awkwardness, money back guarantee. I don't drip feed things to people. I don't make them show me their homework. I don't make them have done the work in any way, shape or form. If people after 30 days want their money back, regardless of the reason, I give it back to them, no questions asked. This makes it really safe for people to invest with me because they get a good chunk of time to get to know the process, to see if it's a good fit for them. And if anything happens, like I've had people ask for refunds because they crashed their car and they have access to that refund within that first 30 days. Now, the reason why I've done 30 days is because 1, it's very generous. And 2, I also find for some people when they invest in a big leap in their business, they then go on a self-sabotage rampage and things like car crashes, getting sick or other things that mean that they're not ready to go ahead with it can be quite common. And so they usually show up within the first 30 days. So even if the reason why people need money back from me is they need the money back for something else, I am totally okay with giving that to them because I don't want people to have buyer's remorse. So I have a very generous money back guarantee, which reduces the risk. I also do other things that reduce the risk for people as well. So for example, with the takeoff program, you don't have to jump in, do the program in 12 weeks and then get booted out. It has a lifetime access guarantee. So by lifetime, I mean for the lifetime of the program. So as long as the takeoff program exists, people get access to it. And I guarantee it will be available for at least a year from when the last person purchased it. So what that means is that people are able to jump into the takeoff program, and if life happens and they get distracted along the way or they need to take a break, they're not going to miss out on the outcomes of the program simply because they weren't able to complete it in the 12 weeks that normally people would complete it in. So that is a reduction of risk for people because they don't have to have the perfect 12 weeks of space perfectly mapped out and not have any interruptions or life happen. So that's also a risk reducer. The other thing I do to reduce risk for people is having access to me. So because I have live group coaching calls in the Takeoff program and in the Heart Center Business Academy, if people get stuck on something, they can come to a call and ask me. They can go into the Facebook group and ask me. And that actually reduces the risk that they get to a certain point, get stuck and don't know where to go from there, which is something that can happen for people when they do self-study things. So it's a really great way to reduce risk. Other ways you can reduce risk in one-to-one services might be offering a free trial or offering a money-back guarantee for the first session. Or you could do things like having regular check-ins with your clients for VIP services. Or another big one, which I see works really well, is selling a single session as well as having your VIP packages. So I love buying singles, right? So when I want to work with a new healer, I won't jump into a 6-month healing journey with someone until I've done a single, right? I want to do a single healing session with them, see if we're a good fit, see if it's a good fit, see if it's a good fit for where my business is going, see if it's a good fit personality wise, all of those sorts of things. That then reduces the risk in investing, because when I do jump into the 6 months, I already know who I'm working with. I already know it feels really good and that I'm getting great outcomes from that person. So sometimes reducing risk might be offering a trial period or an opportunity to jump in and get a taster in some way, shape or form, whether that be free or whether that be paid. So have a look at the ways that there's risk, the layers of risk that are involved in people investing in working with you, and look for ways that you might be able to reduce that risk in order to increase your conversions. And then the final one is kind of an either or. Number 8 is time or urgency. So when it comes to maximizing conversion of your sales, most marketers will say create urgency or scarcity. Now, a lot of marketers will say create false urgency or scarcity. And yes, I do agree that urgency and scarcity do often increase the conversion rates of the things that you're selling at that particular point in time. But I have found that over time, not having too much scarcity or urgency means that my conversion rates start to improve and increase with the amount of time that people are on my mailing list, because I'm giving them time to make the decision and I'm giving them time to come to the conclusion that that program is the right fit for them. So I have 2 peak times when people purchase from me to join my takeoff program. The first peak time is within the first 30 days. So in the first 30 days that someone discovers the way that I do sales and the way that I teach startup and the way that I teach marketing, there's a peak time where they're going to convert into a paying client. And then the second peak is about 11 to 12 months into our relationship. So for a second subset of people, they get to know me, they jump in, they come to a webinar or they come and listen to the podcast, and it takes them between 11 and 12 months. It's 11 months and 14 days at the moment, between 11 and 12 months for that person to then come and join the takeoff program. Now, if I made the takeoff program only urgent and scarce, I would miss out on the sales with those people. So my takeoff program is evergreen. People can buy at any point in time. Doesn't matter. You can go and click on the link today and come and join us in the takeoff program. So takeoff is open all the time. That gives people time to make that decision and get to know me more and come and check it out. And on Evergreen, I would sell 3 or 4 spots in the takeoff program every single month. It's starting to increase these days as my reach and my audience gets bigger and bigger. And that's a really good thing. Great for the bottom line of my business. I also have launches of the takeoff program, usually about 3 times a year, where I will have some sort of incentive to buy now. So for example, sometimes we open an extended payment plan. So the normal payment plan for the takeoff program is 4 payments, but sometimes during a launch, I'll make it 8 payments to make it even more affordable for people to be able to jump in. And that extended payment plan will have a closing date. That creates a little bit of urgency for people to jump in sooner rather than later. Another thing I do is my 1, 2, 3 fast track. So when I'm launching the takeoff program, every now and then I'll do this 1, 2, 3 fast track. And what that is people who join by a certain date will be able to participate in extra calls with me to fast track their way through the first 3 modules of the takeoff program, because the money making modules are modules 4, 5, 6, and 7. So people are able to join the takeoff program, do the fast track part, and get to modules 4, 5, 6, and 7 as quickly as possible so they can start making money back within the first 30 days of being in the takeoff program. This has 2 effects. 1, it incentivizes people to jump in really quickly. And 2, it reduces the number of refunds that people ask for, because by the time the 30-day window comes around for them to ask for a refund, most people already have made some money back. And in some cases, people have made back more than their initial investment in the takeoff program as well. So it's a really great way for me to have both of those things increasing conversion. Now, I wanted to present these together because I think that you can actually have both. You can give people time and have some urgency. It doesn't need to be one or the other. So have a think about the ways that you could encourage people to hang around for a little longer and make a decision about whether it's right to work with you or not. And have a think about the ways that you can start incentivizing people to take their action quicker at certain points in the year. Now, that is it for the 8 keys to maximizing sales conversions. Now, I realize I've given you a lot of things here. I'm going to recap them for you, but before I do, I want to let you know about a special free resource that I have for you, particularly if you are still not making consistent sales conversions in your business right now. So if you aren't consistently getting clients in the door, I have a free training for you. It's called Fast Track Your Startup. Now, I understand that for some people, they're not actually in startup. You've been in business for 3 years. But what this is actually fast tracking your conversions, fast tracking that consistent sales coming into your business. And if you haven't got consistent sales coming into your business, when it comes to online marketing, you are actually still in startup phase. So go along to the show notes for today's episode, tashcorbin.com/176, and you can grab that Fast Track Your Startup training absolutely free. Now, just before we close up, let me sum up what those 8 keys to maximizing sales conversions are. Number 1, ask for the sale. Number 2, niche, get hyper specific. Number 3, value proposition. Is the value of the thing that you're selling higher than the price that you're asking for it? Number 4, aligned priorities. Attach to existing priorities instead of trying to change the priorities of potential clients. Number 5, connection, and remember, be human. Number 6, empowerment. Number 7, reduce the risk. And number 8, give them time or make it urgent, or a combination of the two. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Big love from me, and bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.